One. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Trainman Report. This is the 20th episode of our little local NDG news show where we just talk to people in the neighborhood. We're having an identity crisis and trying to understand it live in front of you. What's important is that it's about NDG. You have Alex Montagano, the Trainman himself here. My name's Holden Stephan Roy. We have guests on the show, guests such as Alex Bonaparte, who Alex will definitely come through with the whole proper introduction real shortly. But before we get into that, this is a live show, so if you are watching this, make sure to have some leave your comments. It's an open discussion. We would love to interact with you. We may be a little slow to the jump depending on which platform you're on, but we are there and we will respond to you and incorporate you into the show as best as we can. On top of that, if you're watching in the future, leave comments as well. Leave your feedback, your suggestions, all that good stuff. Tell Alex you want to buy Trainman merch so he thinks more deeply on the topic and we can evolve in the monetized capitalistic world of content marketing in 2024. I digress.
Money for you, eh, Holman?
Yo, we content in this game. It's once you start producing, you start taking on costs, and then you either recoup or you lose, and that's just the basic world of the internet today. You can do everything as passion projects, but it would be nice to grow, get bigger, and do bigger and better things, and reinvest in it and amplify. Hire somebody to be the person taking notes so I can focus more. Things like that, I digress. Correct. We appreciate all of you future Patreons watching this in the moment. We love all of you who are here with us. On that note, Alex, why don't you come through with your wonderful introductory skills?
Well, I am tickled pink to have this guest on our show. His name is Anthony Bonaparte, and he goes by the what do you call it? The pen name Napoleon.
Whatever you want to call it.
The editorial cartoonist, like for example, Aslan for the Gazette, and you are Napoleon for Aslan. Excuse me, God.
No problem.
God forgive me. And you are Napoleon. You are the editor cartoonist for the Suburban, and you've been just doing some, knock out of the park kind of stuff. Really, I really see your cartoons, having really great punch. And I just thought, oh, we got to have Anthony Bonaparte on the show. And one of the reasons that motivated me, to invite you was that you recently did a cartoon where you had CAC being represented by a blue wrestler who was fighting against McGill, presented in red as a red wrestler, and Concordia in the burgundy colors of Concordia. And we'll talk about that a little later, but that on the NDG level, on the Montreal level, broke the internet, right? It was like our little Kardashian moment, right? If I could use that analogy. And we'll talk a little bit about that later, but I guess that the biggest question I have is, like, who is Anthony Bonaparte? Like, what is your origin story? You are a Montreal, are you not? You're an Anglophone Montrealer, and for everybody who's watching this live and via video feed, you're black, right? So I say that because some people are watching the show and can't see you, so I'm saying that. Okay. So shoot, tell us, who are you? Where are you from?
Born in London, England. My parents are from Grenada.
London, England.
My parents are from Grenada. It's the West Indies.
Mm-hmm.
They knew each other there. They both went to England in the early 60s, late 50s, to study, because back then as a colony, you had to go to the motherland to get a higher education. So they both went to London, met there again, got married there, had me there, and I left London when I was about to be 2 years old to go back to Grenada for about a year or two. And then we moved to Montreal when I was about 4 years old. So I grew up in the city. First place we lived was Côte-des-Neiges.
Oh, so you lived in Côte-des-Neiges. Okay.
Yeah, when I was really young. Then when I was 8 or so, we moved to the East End, Ville d'Anjou. Father bought a house in Anjou, and I grew up here. So that's why I was lucky enough to learn French at a very young age, so I'm perfectly bilingual. I'm an Anglophone, and grew up in Anjou. Went on to study at Pure Applied Science and at Champlain for a couple of years, And then I studied interior design at Dawson for a couple of years. And that's when the South Africa, Mandela politics began to invade my mind. I no longer cared about my design studies. I was more focused on reading about politics, and I delved completely into it. This is like the mid '80s.
I remember those times. I remember
Yeah,
that time. Yeah.
I was buying every magazine pot. Remember the days of magazines, Alex, when you
Yes,
actually
I do.
go to a magazine store and
Yes.
actually I would like be there for an hour and I'd buy 10 magazines, okay, on a weekly
Newsweek, The
basis. Yeah,
Economist,
oh yeah, The Economist,
Foreign Affairs,
Newsweek,
Foreign
Times, the
Policy.
Foreign Affairs,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I and I subscribed to quite a few of them also.
Mhm.
Mother Jones and all. And read,
And Mad Magazine, right?
that's our secret. Went back to school, studied history,
Oh, wow.
and whilst I was there, somebody saw. I don't know what happened, but somebody. I don't know how I got into the link, but either somebody saw something that I did or doodled and said, "Why don't you come work for the link?" I did that for a while. I was their graphics editor, did the
For
cartoon
people who
for a
don't know,
couple of
Link
years.
is the student newspaper at
Yeah,
Concordia University. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It was a good
and
newspaper. Yeah.
yeah. So this is like 30. This is like early 90s.
Right.
And to wrap it all up, I was working at the link. I went to see. I figured I kind of liked doing the cartoon thing. I'd never thought of it before.
Mhm.
Mixing the arts that I've always done with the politics that I was fascinated with.
Mhm.
I went to see Terry Mosher at the Gazette back then.
Oh,
Just
right.
I just threw. I just
Before we
so,
get to the Gazette, so you're a college student and
yeah,
you're working for the newspaper doing political cartoons.
yep.
The student newspaper.
Can
That's right.
you can we just like stop there for a bit, like, because you're talking about also in the early 90s, because as you pointed out, this is kind of the pre-internet days. How
Yep.
does a student really go about doing that kind of role in a pre-internet world?
I'm not sure what the question means. I mean,
Well, I think
this is
he's
Well,
before
like,
the
like how
internet.
did you like actually get the
we had to
news? Like,
mount the
how would
papers by
you
hand.
find
Remember
You
this? Like,
had
what
that?
to
did
you
you
had to
actually
go to
have
the
to
library.
do?
When I had projects to do, I would actually leave my house and take the metro downtown to go to the stacks at McGill. We had to go through the little drawers to find information, to go to things like microfiche, actually picking up books, photocopying books. Kids today have no idea how lucky they are.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah. And
no bloody idea how
if
lucky
you
they are.
if you
Yeah.
wanted to find an article in a periodical, like a
Oh
magazine
man.
many years
Yeah.
ago, you had to go through a volume
Yeah.
of like periodicals, and you would look up the subject, and it would tell you where and what edition and what year the article would be. Then you had to
There's 3 hours
go.
work to find one article. It was 3 hours. Now you press a button, press a bloody button.
Yeah.
These little buggers today have no idea how lucky they have it. Seriously,
Is
don't get
this
me
is this your
started.
question, Holden? To find out
Yeah,
how old
kind
we
of.
are?
Because no, but it's not just okay. Like, I mean, I can see the perception of the age in it, but it's actually like you are a successful political cartoonist. That's what you do. How did you actually get there? Because the current paths do have a lot of people that have the quick and easy. So, like, for me, the bigger curiosity is, well, what did you have to do before it was easy? Like, if we were to even try to replicate the hard ways, what is the hard way?
Well, you
So it's
evolved.
like,
Yeah.
sorry?
I mean, you evolved. I mean, back in the 40s and 50s, there before photocopiers or stuff like that, cartoonists did their work one way, and the ones doing it today, I mean, are doing it a totally different way. The systems and the tools that we have at our disposal have changed. There was no Photoshop when I began doing this. There was no internet. If I had to bring a copy of a cartoon over to someplace, I had to either fax it or have it taxied over. So everything has changed. I mean, it's a whole new world, and you have to basically keep up and evolve with it. Back then, as you're asking, I mean, if you had to do any research for something, like Alex said, you had to go down to the libraries and look for a periodical, look for an article, look for the information. And it was time. It was laborious, but you did it. That's all you knew.
That was time
Right.
consuming.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I kind of enjoyed the sleuthy kind of like you were like a detective, you had to find this information. And I have to admit, I enjoyed it. I liked going through the periodicals and finding the articles, and it was satisfying. I can't say it wasn't an enjoyable experience, but it took a lot of time and it consumed a lot of energy. And I don't miss it.
Productivity
I don't miss
paid the
it.
price, though. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a lot more productive now, and
Oh,
anybody is, than we were 30 years ago.
it's
Like I
incredible.
said, when I had to waste time going downtown to find one answer to a question, that could be a 4 hour back and forth trip, 2 hours in the library going through stuff to find that one paragraph that you're looking for. Today, it takes 10 seconds.
Yep.
So I wouldn't trade it today,
No.
yesterday, for all the money in whatever.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So back on, so here you are, and you went to see Terry Mosher and
Yep.
of the Gazette, who is an editorial cartoonist there
Yep.
under the pen name Aslan. Did I say
Say
that
it
right?
properly. Say it
Yes,
properly.
I said it properly that time.
Excellent. Whatever.
I was very
Whatever.
nervous, by the way.
That's fine. That's fine.
And how did that conversation go?
He was. Now I was scared shitless. I'm. Who am I? Hey, I work for the Link. I Concordia paper.
Right, right,
You
right.
mind giving me the time of day? And you know what? I didn't know what to expect, but he was a god. Okay, I already looked up to him at the time for what he was doing and the awards he was winning, and he was one of the influences that I had when I was looking at cartoons
Mm.
and saying, "Yeah, that looks like a combination of art and politics and getting your ideas together." And I was always pissed off. I was always an angry person, and if there was a way to temper down that anger and express it in another way, a more humorous way, I thought that was rather therapeutic. And seeing what people like Moshe was doing and Duncan McPherson and other cartoonists across the country, it was very influential to me. I never thought of it before, but here I was in his office, and he was fantastic. He gave me a tour of the Gazette, gave me some material to read, answered questions for about an hour or so, if not more, and I got really inspired. Um,
He's
fast
a
forward,
he's a
fast
master.
forward,
Yeah,
yeah,
he's a
yeah,
master. Yeah.
and I till this day I respect the man.
Mhm.
And next thing you know, I was working for the Mirror. Remember the Mirror, the
I
Montreal
do
Mirror?
remember the
Yeah,
Mirror very
I do.
well. An excellent
I
newspaper.
yeah, I don't know how that happened, but I got a job working for the Mirror in the early '90s,
Mhm.
as their cartoonist for 5 or 6 years, under Peter Scowen,
Mhm.
the editor at the time. And I mean, early '90s, I was working for the Mirror, and then I worked for Community Contact for a little bit, and then late '90s, I got a job with the Suburban
And you've been there
as a
since.
cartoonist, and then with by 5 years later, they asked me to become a features editor. So I do the cartoons at the Suburban, but I'm also an editor of the features section, which is
Right, you
arts
do
and life.
features on
Yeah,
local personalities, on people within the community. Yeah, those are great features you do. I've seen a couple of those.
yeah. So that's a
Yeah.
lot of fun. So
And John Jordan is saying he was a graphic designer at the Mirror while you were there.
who's this?
John Jordan.
Okay, there you go.
John Jordan, he's been on the show. He's the creator of the
Okay.
Cat Alley, right? In NEG.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah.
There we
Okay,
go. And
I remember
he used to play
that.
for Me, Mom, and Morgenthaler. Remember them, the ska
I
band?
got it. Okay, now
The
I can.
sax player.
Okay,
He's been a big supporter of ours and a very kind soul.
famous guy.
Kind NEG soul. John,
Yeah.
we are blessed. You are very kind. Yeah. So going on, like this whole dynamic, right? I see this in my own life because, as you know, I'm politically engaged. I'm involved, and
Yeah.
the mixing of politics and art, right? It happens. It exists, right? And what do you have to say to that? Like, because sometimes politics gets a bad name. People, oh, you're being political, but as a cartoonist, editorial cartoonist, you're nothing. You're nothing but political, right? The politics is there in every which way you look at it. So how do you how when you meet people, what do you see yourself more as? Do you see yourself more as kind of like a political pundit or as an artist? How does that play into your identity? I'm curious.
I'm not a pundit. I'm a news junkie,
Okay.
so I won't pretend to give anybody any advice,
Right.
expert on anything. But I do love to watch, read, listen. It's all
Mm,
I do. Be it NPR or PBS or
mm,
CNN, MSNBC,
mm.
radio,
I didn't
blogs.
hear Fox in there.
Pardon me? You're not gonna. No, no, you're not gonna hear Fox coming across my lips.
You know
If
what?
there
I
are,
have to admit, I go to
without a
Fox.
few swear words
Yeah, I go to
and
Fox to see what
insults
they're
coming
talking about. I'm
afterward.
just
Yeah,
curious.
please don't get me started about Fox, whatever they call themselves. No, I have little to no respect for Fox, and but I'll leave that there.
Mm,
But no, we all live here. We're all living on this planet, and I think it's important for us to be engaged.
yes.
Uh, whether it's on a very very hyper local issue or a macro, political issue, I think it's important for us to all care. I
Mm,
mean, I didn't realize that I was black until I saw Mandela and I saw what was going on in South Africa. Unfortunately, the schooling system that we have here does not, in a sense, teach you or expand upon other people's lives and cultures until you get to a higher level of education. So I
mm,
didn't know much about slavery until I went to university.
mm,
Okay, I took a slavery course, two semester course.
mm.
Holocaust. I took a 2 semester Holocaust course on the Holocaust at university level. Prior to that, you don't really know much. Okay, I took
Mm,
history in high school,
mm.
but you get the general dates.
Right.
Columbus did this, when, what, and who cares?
Samuel Champlain,
Exactly.
he came up the St. Lawrence River.
There you go. So only when I got I began to find out on my own that there was more to life than what I was doing at the time.
Mm, mm,
Meeting women, cool clothes, and interior design, and whatever the hell I was doing.
mm.
All of a sudden, I got conscious and began to care about the planet, the people, and looking at the world and the people that came before and the people that are coming now, and it's way more important to be engaged and to be aware of what's going on around you than to be a vapid twit. That's just
Yes.
me.
Yeah, like that
Was
word
it
vapid.
college that introduced you to all that?
Those magazines that I began reading when like the Foreign Affairs, okay, Africa Now, stuff like that, the New Republic. Um, that's when I realized that I wanted to go back to school and study history and
Okay.
economics. That's what I did.
The New
And
York Times Sunday edition.
yeah,
Remember how thick that was? That was crazy.
yeah. So that
So
was it. Yeah.
just to make sure I'm understanding, the main thing you said there, which I think is really interesting, because the world is kind of different now, is up until you kind of got exposed to a broader world through magazines, and this didn't necessarily happen when you were young, going through regular education. You were living in kind of a siloed Quebec perspective, right? So it's safe to say that the education system here does not focus, or had not, I don't think it still does. It doesn't really focus heavily on the world beyond Quebec's, what it cares about. And to attach yourself to the bigger world requires these other vehicles. So it's a blessing that you encountered it. But was that like common at your back in the day? Did most people end up finding that kind of a revelation through magazines or other mediums, or was that just like your own personal discovery?
I can't speak for everybody. My personal discovery. I mean, there's certain kids, for example, I'm pretty sure, whose parents guided them in different directions. Mine, I'm not saying they didn't do a good job, but they were focused on their jobs, their careers, and I thought I was going to be an architect. Okay, so I was focused through high school and through early CEGEP on pure and applied science and calculus, stuff like that. So I really wasn't thinking about anything else. And then when I realized that I wasn't getting A's in calculus at CEGEP, I said, you know what? Maybe this architecture thing is a bit too complex for me. How about interior design? Okay, it's not decoration, but it's design. And that's when, I began to look at other things. My interests began to basically go in other directions. And so I'll speak for myself. I changed, I evolved, I grew.
You have to remember
Right.
that Anthony, like I, is a Gen Xer, and we grew up during the Reagan, like we became teenagers, young people during the Reagan years, and that was pretty scary times, right? Like we were at the, precipice of nuclear war.
Yep.
It was constantly something we talk about. There was the emergence of a counterculture that came up, what we call goth now, right? So there was a lot of stuff happening at that time, and believe it or not, like back in those days, people used to fight about like what kind of music to listen to. You remember that?
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Of
And
course.
and it was just a strange time and very different than today. Um, and
Well, I mean, that's why we're asking though, because it
yeah,
helps add context to
true. Yeah,
like the
and when you're
journey
asking,
of
yeah,
getting to
but the personal
where you are
consciousness that you're
today.
talking about, right, was it was the times kind of fed into that. And I suspect that this is happening today because our problems now have, in a way, become more dangerous because back in those days it was just the States and Russia that had nukes. Now it's like a whole bunch of nation states that have their hands on this technology that can effectively destroy life on Earth. But we're digressing. Let's get back on Anthony here. Um, so how long, you've been with the Suburban since 1995, is that it?
Oh, let's say late 90s.
Yeah, okay.
But I
All right.
forget when exactly.
So here we are, like you're an Anglophone, you're a visible minority. Um, your cartoons of late, like have, they're taking an edge on now, and they're really reflective in my mind about the political environment that's in Quebec right now for minorities, Anglophones, and can you talk a bit about that? Are you seeing obviously we're seeing it in your artwork, but is this something that preoccupies you most of the time now when you're like looking at the political landscape out there and what the news is generating on a day-to-day basis?
I'm a double minority in this province. I'm an
Okay.
Anglophone black
Right.
person. Okay. So I'm pissed off twice. Okay. Even though I speak perfect French,
Right.
and in some cases better French than the average Québécois, okay,
Right. Fair enough.
I'm still an Anglophone, number
Right.
one. Most of my friends, and I went to a school where most of my friends in high school, I was the only black guy in my high school in Anjou, and when I was growing up. So most of my friends were either Italian or Yugoslavian or Ukrainian or name the country from Eastern Europe. They were all there because I was the catchment school for Anglophones in the East End. So my best friend was my best friend was Croatian,
Mhm.
Yugoslavian back then. Um, my family, I have two brothers and a sister. They both left Quebec to study elsewhere, and they both have successful careers all over the world. My sister works in Atlanta. I have two brothers in Toronto, and a lot of my friends moved away from Quebec when they were in their 20s,
Mhm.
and the ones that did move away to Calgary, to Ottawa, to Toronto are all very, very successful, all
Mhm.
did very, very well because language was not an impediment. In
Mhm.
this province, though, yeah, I kind of had this impression that if your last name isn't,
Right.
yeah, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
There's a certain glass ceiling above you. So
Yes,
if you're an
yes.
I got
Anglophone
I
black
got one of
person,
the good last names.
what's that?
I said I got one of the good last names, and it's worked out in my favor by
Leroy.
accident. So it's just how it plays out.
Leroy. Holden
Despite what I
Leroy.
speak.
You bastard. Yeah, okay. Anyway.
No, I completely hear you. And the same thing
So
happened.
yeah,
Look,
so there's not just one chip on my shoulder, there's two of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And I'm not taking any crap. That's all.
Well, the
Yeah.
same thing happened to me, very much like you. I grew up on the West Island. I went to high school down in Eugene. I basically very much, part of the Anglophone community. We spoke French. My mother's French Canadian. Lapierre is my mother's maiden name. But
Okay.
I found myself like kind of trapped between two worlds in Quebec, and the majority of my friends have left Quebec, from high school. They're not here anymore, and they've gone elsewhere to find opportunities. And in fact, I started my career by leaving the province. I couldn't find a job to start my career here. I had to go to Toronto. It was during the Parisol years. And I started my career there, and I had success there. And I got transferred back to Montreal to handle the Quebec, Ottawa Maritime territory for in the computer industry. And that's the only way that I was able to achieve any success in a career was by doing that. If I had stayed in Quebec, I would have never had that opportunity. I don't believe so, and it's unfortunate. But going on, I just want to pull up. Let's get to it right there, and let's pull up that. Well, I was going to talk about the history medium, but let's pull up that cartoon there, Holden, of the Gordia McGill and Legault thing. I just need to pull this up because I tell you, this was a big knockout here in Montreal. It is the biggest post I have ever had, like in terms of numbers that I've ever had on the social media. I have a professional account, so I can track all these numbers, and I'm kind of like into numbers because I am a son of an accountant. So pull that out. Can you pull that up there, Holden?
I'm working on it, Alex.
Holden?
I'm working.
Holden?
Alex, you need patience. Keep talking.
These millennials, man. It's incredible. Okay, we're waiting.
Alex sent me 10 pictures that are poorly named.
I sent you 4. That's not correct.
You sent me
4.
10 pictures in an email this morning.
4.
In an email this morning. So
No, I sent it on a chat on Messenger.
You also did you not send me that email? You did. So those were all downloaded, and now I'm trying to get through it all and find it. So apologize, everyone.
I apologize.
Alex is very abrupt.
I apologize. It's all my fault all the time.
Seeing the husband-wife thing happening here.
Oh, here we go.
There we go.
There we go. Oh my God, this just killed the internet. Like, I know that it's never be in the same category as some of the viral stuff that goes worldwide in North America, right? But just to give you an idea, okay, this thing got a post reach of 211,000. So that's like almost close to 500,000 people. And then the engagement is what blew me away. This is people who liked it or clicked on it or said something, or they actually physically interacted with the and they commented or something. It was at 14,922. Can you believe that? Because it just got shared and shared and shared and shared. That is just out of the park. And I posted that and I said, "Hey, Montreal, it's time to rumble." And I think Anthony, you hit a nerve with this cartoon. Like, people really responded to that. Like, I think people were fed up. They felt that, or they feel, and I think they're right. They agree that the Quebec Anglophone institutions, universities, are under attack, and we see something similar happen at the CEGEP level. Do you agree? Do you see that as well?
What's the question? I'm sorry.
I said, do you see that as well? That it touched the nerve, that it people related to it.
Well, I had no idea that cartoon was gonna do so or create have such a reaction.
Right.
Whenever I do one, or whenever we do one as a cartoonist, or you think it's funny, you think it's gonna go someplace, and sometimes some do, some don't.
Right.
Sometimes the ones that do are the ones that surprise you.
Right.
I'm happy this one hit a nerve with people. But I'm not surprised because people like me up and stuff. You can hear all you want about how French is in danger, it has to be protected, and no problem. Hey, listen, my parents came here and didn't speak a word of French, but all of their kids are perfectly bilingual, and my parents learned the language. They're not perfect,
Mm,
But my father was alive. He spoke French.
mm,
My mother is 88, and she speaks French
mm,
a little bit. But when you learn it again at an older age, it's a bit tougher. But all of her kids are perfectly bilingual, and three of them buggered off
mm,
to greener pastures.
mm.
The frustration that I have is that, how about recognizing the fact that some of us do? Many of us do. I mean, this is no longer the days of the fat English lady at
The Eden
Eaton's.
Center, that's right.
Okay,
Eden Store, yeah.
exactly.
Doesn't
That's
know how to
that's
speak
that's a
English, right?
myth.
French, yeah.
That's a myth
It
that should
is.
have been put to bed 30 years ago,
Yeah.
but it's still in the minds of the populace, and
Hmm.
it's angering. So yeah, I'm
Can you
perpetually
just
pissed off. Yeah.
now I know this may be evident, but can you just add a bit of context for the people listening, especially the ones that can't see the picture, as what exactly the cartoon represents? Like I get that, but like just for the listeners, can we just give a bit of backstory on it?
That's fine. That's fine. Basically, it's a cartoon that has two, um, is the proper word dwarf, or small people. I mean,
Right.
wrestlers one's wearing the Concordia University um, colors and logos, and the other one's wearing McGill, all based on the fact that Concordia and McGill were punished recently by the Go governments by increasing their tuition fees that they would charge to out of province Anglophone students. If you're from Belgium or France or Switzerland, you're okay. But if you're from Ontario or Manitoba, they're gonna poke you up the tuchus,
Yeah.
okay, with increased fees.
Hmm.
That's discriminatory, and it's only against Anglophones who also pay taxes that
Hmm.
support this province.
Hmm.
Transfer fees, don't get me started. But it's basically the discrimination and basically hitting against um, the Anglophone community again and again and again. And you can take just so much of the abuse before you hit back. So I suppose there are people who saw the cartoon and cartoons like it, or and editorials like it, and just are starting to say, enough. We're bending over backwards to accommodate and to accept the fact Quebec that French has to be protected in North America, but to what extent? Okay. Kicking me in the head is not going to help your language survive.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the cat government is essentially, their game plan, the long-term game plan is it's really looking for the decimation, decimate the, excuse me, the Italian non-francophone communities in Montreal and Quebec. They're attacking the English universities, which are, McGill is an internationally Ivy League school. How can it depends on out of province students for its survival. It's like it's brutal. And then not only that, but they want to the Go government, the cat government wants to limit like access to English CEGEPs, which you really can't call them English CEGEPs anymore. I don't know if you've ever been to Dawson or Vanier lately, Anthony, but I have because my son is just starting CEGEP. And you can't really call these Anglophone institutions. They're
No,
multicultural institutions. People
of
are speaking
course.
French, English. You hear Lebanese, you hear Arab, you hear Hebrew. You hear it all. Like everybody's like it's a celebration, right? And I think
All the kids who were forced into French elementary schools and high
right,
schools,
right,
fine, no problem. But the smart ones who want to have a job in North America
right.
when they grow up might want to learn some English, and
Yeah,
they do.
a
They
lot
go
of the
into
big
English. Yeah,
yeah, you're absolutely right. A big portion of the student body was francophones. I remember that about
sure.
Dawson. I went to take a refresher course on cabinet making, and I was surprised at how much French was being spoken in the hallways. And it's impossible to get into the science program in Dawson because all the French students, right, from high school and elementary school who didn't have really access to good Anglophone education want to go to Dawson for their pure and applied studies. So And what
Especially in
is
something like the sciences, where when you learn all the terms in French, it becomes really difficult to communicate with the international community that uses a completely different jargon set. So, like, just in case people don't really see it, like, there's a big advantage for French students to want to go learn in English at higher levels, even if, like, because, you know, it's not, I feel like the modern world, the Quebec government has been trying to almost fill up the English schools with French kids and make it so that like the English schools can't block it. Like they have to let as many French kids as possible. And it really, in the big picture, is forcing a lot of immigrants and people who aren't born here to go to French universities and go down that assimilation path, where my understanding is universities these days are very different than they were back in the day in terms of how the student population is very susceptible to the culture on campus. And
yeah, for sure.
so
So
if
one
like the government's pressuring people to go down these paths, it kind of lets them have a lot more of a say in what they learn. And as we discussed before, Quebec is not good at broad perspectives and appreciating differences.
let's pull up. Can we pull up that other edit? This one's a bit controversial, right? Let's pull up the fountain
I'm gonna show you
cartoon.
the folder, and you want the
Uh,
fountain.
yeah, it's on the. You can. It's easy.
No,
You can
I
access
found
it.
that one. I
You can.
figured
Okay, you can
it's
access
coming.
easier on the chat group that we have.
I'm
There we
not
go.
pulling up group chats and
There
on the
we
screen.
go. Anthony. Oh boy. This one is interesting. You have two water fountains, and Quebec under Bill 96, you have the Francophones and Les Autres, which is interesting because I don't know if you know about Tula, but she just published a book called The Others, right? So she's using the same kind of language that you're using to describe, immigrants, people who don't really fit into, that ideal that the Quebec government, wants us to be, right? That's what I see.
Everybody but
Yeah,
pure Laine
this
versus
really, yeah,
francophones.
this
Exactly.
ethnocentric nationalism, right?
Yeah. The
Oh,
rest of
we're not
us,
racist, just to be like
no.
us.
Yeah.
Assimilate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh,
It's
I
it's a
like the
Borg
way
thing.
I like the way I am. I like who I am. What's wrong with me? We have a great community. We've contributed to Montreal's history. Like, what am I? I'm Irish, French, Italian. Whatever mixed house is thrown in there that I don't know about.
My
Uh,
issue is I'm a Montrealer.
yeah.
Okay. I have no qualms with Saint Louis de Haha or Saint Sulpice de Michigan. I have no problem with them. But I've got no connection
Hmm.
to that part of Quebec. I have a connection to Montreal.
Hmm.
And I love Quebec, but I love Montreal. And Montreal is my city because it's a multicultural, bilingual, in my view, city. Most of it is francophone, but parts of it are anglophone, and I love the mix. I love the mix of the fact that like I said, most of my friends are from all over the place. I wouldn't want to be in a place where, everyone's named Boisvert
Hmm.
or Tremblay.
Hmm.
And good for them, but don't but get your paws off Montreal.
Right. What do you think? Like, a lot of people are starting to say there's, like, because of the antagonistic nature of the Quebec politics, it's focused on the regions. A lot of, like, a lot of Quebec nationalists see Montreal as a threat, right? The multicultural threat that really, they, in their way, erodes at this idealized myth of what Quebec culture should be. And people are, like, moving away from a Quebec entity. People are saying, well, no, and I see that in myself. I said, no, I'm a Montrealer. I'm more of a Montrealer. When people ask me where you're from, I'm from Montreal. Like, I was in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And I ran into some people and they asked me where you're from. I'm from Montreal, and it goes, where's that? Well, it's a city in Quebec, Canada. How do you feel about that? Do you feel similar? Is that something you feel as well?
I see. No, Montreal is the biggest city in Quebec.
Hmm.
The same with that. So say, listen, go to the states. First of all, I have a problem with the southern states, right?
Right.
These reasons.
I can
Okay,
understand why.
something that makes this line. I've got a historical problem with Alabama, Georgia,
Georgia.
so on for historical reasons. But the big cities, the main cities, in those southern, and I'll say it, redneck states
Right.
are more liberal
Mm,
than the small towns in those
mm,
states.
mm,
They would tend to have a black mayor, for example, or a
mm,
women mayor,
mm,
okay? Because they are more progressive. The people, for example, that are more progressive, that are more, in a sense, worldly,
mm,
go to the big capitals, the big
mm,
cities,
mm,
okay, like Birmingham.
mm,
But the small towns are the ones that are retrograde.
mm,
Same thing with Quebec. Same thing with Ontario. Okay,
mm,
Toronto and the surrounding areas are a bit more progressive and liberal,
mm,
but go away from that, the GTA, and
mm,
you've got more conservative people, which is fine.
mm,
Okay, you can have whatever political view or bent you want,
mm,
but if you're part of the minority, generally speaking,
mm,
because you're out in the hinterlands with more ridings or more counties, and you
mm,
want to impose your retrograde beliefs on the big city
mm,
because there are threats to your beliefs, well,
mm,
then bugger off. That's
mm,
my problem.
mm,
So Montreal could be the engine of of the province,
mm.
but I'm trying to temper my insults here. Uh, Unilingual pig farmer
Right.
in whatever
Mhm.
is pissed off that there's too much English or Greek being spoken on the corner of the Saint Urbain and whatever street. Please, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
let it
Um,
go.
in the news today, I don't know if you saw it, but Legault threatened Trudeau over immigration. Did you see that?
Yes, yes.
What do you think about that?
He's flailing. I mean, the consensus over the past few months has been that Legault is trying to usurp the attraction, the peak you had towards the nationalists. So
Right.
he promised to have no referendum. He promised to be different. But whenever he's in trouble, and he is right now, he's in free fall
Mm,
politically. He's doing everything possible to maintain the nationalist vote, i.e., the PQ vote,
mm,
and Paul Saint Pierre Plamondon, for what it's worth, has hit a nerve with a certain part of the population. So he's struggling. So he's doing whatever he can to either beat up on the English or beat up on immigration or whatever it is that'll basically please the rubes out in the hinterland, and that's what I will call them. So yeah, he'll do what he can to survive.
And just so that people are aware, the way Quebec's political map works, while Montreal is the biggest city, we only represent, I believe, 25% of the seats in power at the political level. So while we are a giant part of the population, we are largely underrepresented when it comes down to provincial politics. So it's in Legault's best interest to focus on the people that don't live in Montreal, make them feel afraid of English, and rally them behind these things. And this has been how politics has played out for a very, very long time in Quebec.
this is what we call, it's kind of like I kind of compare the situation when it's happening in Quebec, especially it was related to minorities. We're like kind of a frog in water that constantly gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and before you know, the water's boiling, we're dead. and and in Quebec, we really have this brew of like ethnocentric identity politics that's being driven by a cultural insecurity, right? And there are valid reasons for the French to have these insecurities, but it really is being, I feel, used by the politicians to really like leverage themselves and use it as a power lever. And it's really dangerous. And I don't like what I see, and it's been going on for some time now.
It's happening
And
everywhere. It's happening everywhere. Look at
yeah,
Italy.
yeah,
Look at Hungary. Look at
yeah,
that orange turd down in the down south. Donald Trump
yeah.
and it's politics. It's all about it's ethnocentric nationalism.
Mhm.
It's us against them. It's
Right.
protecting. Make America great again. What does that mean? Going
Yeah,
back to the 50s.
I hear you.
You
Yeah.
know, it's racist. It's
Hmm.
it's nationalistic. It's anti-immigration.
Hmm.
Anti les autres, the others.
Yeah.
and it's sad and scary,
Hmm.
but it pisses me off to no end.
So why don't we go to the next editorial cartoon that we have there?
I don't
I
know.
sent you four in the chat there, Holden. The four we're gonna go because Anthony sent us quite a few that are just awesome, but I had to narrow it down because obviously, you know, he can't be here all night. And you also sent us a resume, right? You prepared a text to describe each of these. Boy. So,
All right, so this is the next one.
here we go. Yeah, I kind of like this one because I kind of the reasons why I chose this one, Anthony, is because it's kind of like laws stacked on top of each other, and they're all stacked on top of a book called Minority Rights in Quebec, and and the weight of all these laws, right? And what that does to the Anglophone minority population in Quebec. And if you look at the data, right, the population data, it's clear. It's crystal clear. What you've seen since the introduction of Law 101 is you saw a massive exodus with the initial introduction of Bill 101. And what I find is that the Quebecers, the Anglophones, minorities that stayed in Quebec after Law 101, kind of like they accepted the deal. Okay, yeah, okay, we have to, appreciate that the French want to protect their culture and protect their language. But now it's getting okay, we got like, Bill 96, we got Bill 2021, and now we've got Section 33 of the Canadian Rights and Charter, and not they're using the notwithstanding clause to basically, you know, side skirt any like objection to their laws over the Canadian rights, Bill of Rights or Charter of Rights, excuse me. So yeah, what like when you did this, what inspired you to do this particular editorial cartoon? This
I'm
was
old
done.
enough.
This was
I'm old.
done. Sorry, this was done in 2021. I apologize. Was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember Bill 22 under
Mm.
Robert Bourassa.
Yeah, I remember that
This is
one too.
before the PQ and the René Lévesque came into power, and
Right.
that was their way of trying to fend off more nationalistic, more discriminatory laws.
Mm.
So Bill 22 was bad enough to Anglophones back then. This is like 50 years ago. Then Bill 101 came into power. We're fine. So we dealt with that. But the
Mm.
problem is, you give, the old adage, you give a person an inch, they want a mile, right? So
Right.
how far will you want to go?
Right.
Death by a thousand cuts. And the problem is, if you're with any party these days, be it Republicans in the States or conservatives in Canada or Pickists or nationalists in Quebec, you always have to try to outdo the previous generation. So
Right.
if you're perfectly set up with all the laws you want, someone will come and say, "Well, we want to do this."
Right.
So it never ends. And how far does it go? So the whole point of that cartoon was
Mm.
they're piling on laws, piling on demands, piling on restrictions that totally ignore basic human rights,
Mm-hmm.
minority rights,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a simple way of drawing it.
Mm-hmm. No, it was really, I thought it was very it was a strong message. Yeah. So we have one more, don't we, in the kit box there of cartoons from Napoleon.
We have a
Anthony
bunch more,
Bonaparte.
but
I'm just guessing you chose Anthony Napoleon because your last name's Bonaparte, right? Oh, he has a hat. Yes. I was gonna criticize him for his rather drab wardrobe, but he does have his hat. He's got his up. Come on, people, look at
Yeah,
that.
I figured
That's
I'm on
that that
Trainman
that
show.
that that
I might
that's
as
for
well
sure.
have don a
Yeah,
costume
here we
and
go.
play the part. This is cosplay, right? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I got my.
And Holden, where's your pickles, man?
man, we always got the pickle chain.
Oh, he's got it. There we go. All right.
20
So
minutes of work here.
20 minutes? That's
Yeah,
it. No, that's pretty efficient. Yeah, pretty
I'm an art.
efficient.
I am an artist.
You are an artist and you decide to design you study design. So
There you
let's
go.
let's let's go to that other cartoon. That was the one where it's the bus riding over the minorities. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that one. Quebec Anglo. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that one very well. I used that one to, as you know, I ran in the by-election as Trainman, of course, and I used his editorial cartoon to punch the message home of like what's happening to us in Quebec. And that was my kind of my main platform issue was that, hey, we're a community. We have a lot to offer. We've been part of Quebec history. We're great, and especially NEG, nice, welcoming people. And why is it that we're just constantly under assault? It's like, why is it that we can't find our proper place in Quebec? Why is it that we have to feel shame of who we are? We should be proud. We should all be proud together, right? And am I touching kind of like the deal with that editorial cartoon? You know?
Yeah, I don't want your viewers to get the impression that all I do is anti-Franco, poor Anglo cartoons. I do a lot more than that.
Right.
These are selected, but I do sports stuff, cultural stuff, stuff on the eclipse and whatever it is. But there's a perennial anger about the myth of that old Anglo from the 50s. What our parents or grandparents did back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s,
Hmm.
I understand was insulting towards the Francophone community of Quebec, but that has changed. And the fact that it hasn't been recognized, that evolution of the Anglophones that are here right now
Hmm.
has not been recognized and accepted and
Hmm.
celebrated
Hmm.
by those in power
Hmm.
is angering, and it's like enough. There's a line in Columbo, an old TV show from the 70s.
I remember it
He
well.
says, yeah, with Peter Fox
Yeah.
saying, "This far, but no farther." In
Right.
other words, I've conceded this much to you.
Right.
At a certain point, bugger off. Okay,
Right.
don't ask
Right.
for another inch because seriously, f you. Okay,
Right.
and
Right.
that's how I felt for the past, well, how many years I won't say,
Right.
but I speak French. I live. I can live in French if I wanted
Hmm.
to.
Hmm.
What more do you want from me?
Hmm.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna renounce my language to please you. Let go.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's like, what about our culture, right? They're always
Yeah.
talking about protect, and Anglophone minority culture in Montreal is very unique to Montreal. It's not. It's you can't really find it anywhere else in the world, and that's to be celebrated, right? And I
And I'm
always
sorry. Yeah. And I
no,
don't. And I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna watch La Voix because you say so. I'm not gonna love Céline because you say so.
I know I
You
hate
know.
Celine.
Sorry.
It really bothers me.
Celine's special though. I gotta just say, she's not bad. Let's not group her in.
No, she's a good singer. I'll give her that much. But I just really,
Like even the
I'll,
Americans
I'll
want to
never
give us
forgive her.
props for Celine more than hate on us for her. Like she's done a net positive.
Yeah, well, I'll never forgive her for refusing to accept. I think one year the Canadian version of the Oscars, the Jemmys, is that it? I awarded her best francophone artist that sings in English, and she refused it. I'm like, what? Okay,
Mm, it's
but I just thought that was very bizarre.
I should have said Martin St. Clair, not Céline. So never mind.
What's that? Excuse me.
I should have said Martin St. Clair
Right,
as
right.
as an
But
that's fair.
example,
that's all
and
good.
not Céline. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
take
whatever.
it back.
All the
Sorry.
Celine fans out there, still not a fan.
I apologize.
Don't apologize. I'm not a fan either. So, but like all that we're discussing really feeds into, uh, you know, um, this. I don't know if you know we're having this event on the 25th of April at 7 at the Legion. I don't know if you've seen the film by Guy Rex Rogers. He was on the show
Yeah.
about he does a documentary on basically the state of the minority populations in Montreal and Quebec and the history of the Anglophone community in Quebec because there's a history there, right? Because there's a history there with obviously the Pommies, the English, right? The ones we love to hate so much. I think the hate's collective, from back in the days, right? It was, the Italians, the Irish, the Greeks and the French, right? We were all like collectively living in this environment where we were like cheap labor, sweatshops down on the Lachine Canal, right? Pumping out products and goods. And it's no longer like that, it's changed. And Montreal is a new place. It's it's an awesome place. And yeah, and I read and look at your editorial cartoons, and I really see, you're manifesting this kind of frustration, this rage, this anger that a lot of us are dealing with. I have to tell you, my model trains and my modeling is what keeps me sane, because I didn't do that. I had really been in a bad place.
Your wife is an angel.
My wife is an angel. She is. Yeah, she really doesn't like the train man thing. But what about you? Like, in terms of your artistic, you were saying that it's therapeutic for you, that you feel that you're angry, but doing these cartoons allows you to express yourself in a constructive way. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and you know what? I'm lucky. I mean, I'm living at a time right now where people like Terry Mosher, Aislinn. I envy him to no end because his career took place at a time when newspapers were striving.
Right.
Newspapers were vital.
Hmm.
They had financing. There were cartoonists working at every paper in the city, in the country.
Hmm.
They were thick. They were fat.
Yeah.
Pre-internet days. And his career is ending at a time when that whole gravy train is also ending. So people today, I mean, I've seen a lot of cartoonists
I'm
who
sorry, just a second. Did you say train? I think you did. Okay, good.
I might have, I might have, I might have.
Go ahead.
I might say caboose in the next sentence.
Yeah,
You never
I
know.
know, but I interrupted. You were saying something profound about what's happening with print media right now. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The media, as we all know, is the landscape is changing. It's atrophying.
Right.
There are fewer print publications out there
Hmm.
that are hiring and paying for cartoonists, editorialists,
Hmm.
writers, and so on. Not just cartoonists, but there are fewer places and outlets to cover local and national news.
Yeah.
Um, and there are many cartoonists out there, far better than I, who have lost their jobs over the past 10 years.
Mhm.
So I feel that I'm still privileged to still be working at a weekly. Like I said, I do other stuff also, but I
Mm.
still have an outlet in Montreal for my stuff.
Mm.
And I appreciate that to a certain extent.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's important to get the message out, to have as long as it's there, to get your message out and to say what you have to say. And
Like, how has it adapted for you as an artist now that print media isn't what it is? Like, have you had to pivot into the internet era? Do you have to deal with content marketing? Like, has
That's a
your
good
role as
question.
a cartoonist evolved with the
Yeah, what's the
times?
future? That's my question as well. I'm curious.
there are
Where do you see
people
it?
there yeah, there are people doing it much way better than I am. I mean, because I'm still busy with a few other things. I'm not totally preoccupied with trying to make a name for myself elsewhere,
Hmm.
or marketing myself to my detriment. A good friend of mine is always harping on me to be a bit more proactive in that respect. But yeah, it is changing, and I will eventually have to change along with it. It's not easy. I write and I edit and I do the cartoons, so I'm very, 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 very busy. But if I wasn't doing the other things, I might spend a little bit more time focusing on the art and the cartoons and get a bit more busy with it.
But in saying that, like, the Suburban is really the last local newspaper doing any really local coverage for any CDNG anymore, right?
Yeah.
There used to be quite a bit more. Um, and the Gazette's struggling big time. And the press is no longer doing a print edition, right? It's all electronic. So, what do you like from your perspective, right? Where do you see what's going to happen 10 years from now? Are we going to see the demise of print? Is that it, or do you think there's going to be like like records, like vinyl, like a resurgence is like, and what I find too is that the quality of the content is gone down across the board just because there's less resources, right? Is that a fair
Well,
statement?
well, yeah, there are newsrooms used to have 400 reporters 15 years ago, and now they're down to 50. Okay,
Right.
and the business model that existed 50 years ago has totally changed.
Mm,
I won't get into it, but you know what I'm talking about. The
mm,
business model where people paid to have ads in a paper,
mm,
um, that pie has been sliced 1,000 different ways.
mm,
There's the internet, there's TV, there's streaming, there's 1,000 places for those ad dollars to go,
mm,
and you no longer have to go towards newspapers. So the future, I've got no clue. Print will go away eventually. I mean, what's the point? I'm subscribed to the New York Times, the New Yorker, Washington Post,
mm,
and the Gazette, and it's all online
mm,
on my tablet. Okay.
mm,
I get one print copy a week to my house.
mm,
It's the Saturday Gazette.
mm,
Everything else is a digital copy.
mm,
Okay. Um, and that's me. Okay. Other people will just basically go to, you know, I don't know, what's it called? Instagram for their news.
mm,
Sadly, people who go to unfiltered sources
mm,
for their news are sadly, in many cases, ill-informed,
mm,
easily influenced by fake news,
mm,
and I really worry about the future.
mm,
When in the past we used to have a certain set of parameters or guidelines for what real news was.
mm,
Now that's all gone, and people we're all living in our own universes.
mm,
So when I will argue with somebody who watches Fox, for example, about a certain news item,
mm.
and he or she has a totally set of different facts than I do,
Right.
uh, there's no more discussion.
No,
Which is
you're working
why
you're working
I
off
don't bother
completely
anymore.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're working off the completely different sets of
First question
information.
I
Yeah.
ask is, what do you get your news from, Fox?
Yeah.
I say yes. I go, okay, fine, never
Yeah.
mind. I walk away. I don't want to waste my time.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to that, right? But that doesn't say in the past people were like reading stuff that wasn't true either, right? But I guess what's happened now is that you
We're
see
in
this a lot.
silos now. Yeah,
Yeah, excuse me?
we're in silos now.
Yeah, it's become very polarized in the
Yeah,
States. Yeah, it's dangerous. And I see that polarization happening here.
yep,
Um,
it is.
yeah. And I guess, here's the last question, and I don't know if it's a fair question, but there seems to be I don't know if it's me or if it's general, but I see it kind of seems like a general sentiment out there, a distrust, they call it, from mainstream media. And you seem to hear that like that theme repeated on a regular basis. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that there is like this mistrust of mainstream media out there? Is it because the news staff, the news resources have become so small that they're in many times they're just regurgitating the talk tracks of the government of the day? What is it? What do you see happening out there?
Yeah, this smear of the mainstream media to me has always been something like, uh, let's give the flat earthers and the others the same amount of weight. If I believe in the flat earth, I should get the same amount of time on air to argue my point as a person who believes
Hmm.
in a round earth that goes around the sun, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
So if you're going to propagate bullshit, uh, and you want equal time with people propagating, I don't know, facts
Right,
and truth and
right,
historically backed up events,
right.
as opposed to your bullshit propaganda,
Hmm.
that's when they want to destroy the mainstream media. So it also, to me, it's always whenever people talk about mainstream media and destroying it and being against it, is because they want to be able to propagate their bullshit without question.
I see. Oh, that's a good.
And
That makes sense. I can see that. Sure. Yeah.
and seriously, f them. That's how I feel. F them.
Wait, do you consider the suburban mainstream media? I don't know. I think you guys are kind of staked out.
Next question.
I think you guys have staked out a little niche of the world all by yourselves, and I say that as a compliment, not as a criticism.
You have to pay, you have to basically read a variety of media. Okay,
Right.
read Suburban and read something else. Watch CNN, but also watch MSNBC. Don't watch Fox. You know,
I
read the
watch. I want to know what
papers.
they're. I know what they're. I want to know what they're saying to the right wing crowd.
Or
I want to know what
watch
they're.
Fox in the daytime.
It
Okay?
interests me.
Watch Fox in the daytime. There are good journalists there. It's the propagandists at nighttime that I have no respect for. But no, look at a variety of stuff. Okay, but as long as they don't mock the truth,
Mhm,
don't mock reality. Hey, listen, Donald Trump came to prominence making fun of Obama and questioning his citizenship.
mhm.
You know, questioning whether he was born in America or not, whether he was
Silliness.
an American citizen.
Yeah,
And you know what that did? It brought out all the racists out
that's
there
right. The
who
bottom
were
feeders.
afraid to say they were ashamed to be racist, but this made them go, that's okay.
Yeah, it
This is
got
fine.
nasty.
Just
Yeah,
questioning his birth certificate.
yeah. It's just
F you,
silliness. It was
you are a
silliness.
racist pig.
Yeah,
You
but we
know,
see that. We see that. We don't see that just. We don't just see that with Trump. We see a number of different politicians focus on like really silly, trivial issues. I think they're. It's because they can get on a box, a soapbox, and they can feel themselves good about themselves on an issue that they know the majority of people will agree with them, or they can pander to their base. I don't think it's unique to Trump. I see that all
no,
over
it's
the
not.
place.
It's not. It's
You
not.
see
It's
that on the
growing.
left, you see it on the right. You see
Well,
that
like I
in
said,
Quebec. You see that in
like
Quebec, right?
I said earlier, there's Italy with Melfi, there's
Yeah,
Orban in Hungary,
yeah,
uh, and politicians all over the world right now, I think Argentina also or
yeah.
someplace, or
Well,
Brazil.
yeah.
It's
Well, Lula is you're thinking more of the gentleman before Lula. But I go on. I
anyways.
interrupted
The whole point is it's all about winning elections,
you.
and it's all about winning elections, and
It's all come down to that, eh? It's
if the
just like
population can be manipulated in a certain way
right
by using race or or sexism or
or
xenophobia,
ideology.
whatever it is, or
Yeah, yeah,
God.
yeah,
You play your angles,
yeah.
and people are like that. And sadly, the rest of us
Right.
who've read a book or two in their lives
Hmm.
um, have to take a back seat and watch the whole shit
Hmm.
happen.
Right. Well, Anthony, I think we should end it. And I really, again, as I discussed earlier, before we went live, Hole and I are trying to build something here in the community level. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us your political art and your story. And it was really, I really enjoyed it because you really took me through memory lane there with like the mirror, the link. Um, did you ever do any work for the hour? No, no,
No,
no. Okay. And I miss those days. I miss the days of the artistic newspapers, and it was fun. They were fun times. But things have
yeah.
changed, and doesn't mean that they're worse. We don't have to go to the library and go through the periodicals anymore, right?
and, and I had hair, and I
Yeah,
had
I had nice hair too, man. I miss that. I really do. And it's all in other parts of my body, not on top
yeah.
of my head. How does that happen? I don't know. It's the curse, the curse from the heavens. Um, and I just want to thank you. I really appreciate it. And you're, a very intelligent person, and clearly well read, and a news junkie too. I totally get that. And thank you, Holden. For bringing that millennial perspective to the podcast that I lack, right?
Well, it's more the world is a lot younger than it used to be. The largest generation is now Gen Z. It's we do need to create those bridges. It's one thing
Yes.
to point out how things are different, but if you don't tell people how things are different, then we're failing our duty to actually inform the youth, and we become honestly the same kind of haters who create the fake news that we want to criticize. So we have to take on the obligation to explain what's changed, because
Mm.
the government's not going to, and the media is. I mean, there's a lot more money in fast content. That's the real answer. The mainstream media, why we don't trust it, just so you know, most of us don't trust it. Like, we don't. Even those of us that read books, and it's because we read books. The media is chasing, as you said, revenue model shifted. So, like, when everyone's chasing internet traffic and virality, even within the local news stories, to get the numbers up, to get ad dollars, then you're not getting the same level of in-depth reporting. And the deadlines that reporters have to deliver on are ridiculous. Like, I think they got to turn things in by like 2 p.m. They'll show up and film the first 14 minutes of a event and then have to have the piece in without actually seeing how it ends. Like, there's so much that's changed that make it hard to reliably look at any media source with the same level of trust that once was given to, like, the glory days of reporting when people did pay for the news. Because let's be honest, we stopped paying for the news. Like, we just stopped. You might pay for it, Anthony, but most of us don't pay for the news. We just want it for free. And then we got mad that it became free quality. So we are part of the problem.
It's like we want it free and we want quality. I don't know what
Yeah.
planet that exists. I'm
So
in the
it's like
construction business, you know. That would what?
Hearing
You want me to
about
do
how there
free
was
and you want
like
it to be good quality?
400 reporters back in the day in a newsroom, I'll be honest, it's not something you hear about a lot. It's those little things that give us this window into the past to see the difference between then and now that really help us have broader perspectives, and that leads to people caring more about the political commentary and humor, because right now there's a lack of context, and that makes it hard to attach on to the bigger ideas. And a lot of people don't even know how Quebec politics works, just at a base level. They live here, they vote, but they don't even know how it works. So sometimes
fair
it's just
statement.
about
And I don't say to criticize those
identifying
people.
that the common sense of today is nothing like the common sense of yesterday. And sometimes these questions are important.
Not that our parents were all full of common sense either.
No.
Fair enough.
Driving without a seatbelt, smoking, and like.
Civil rights people, anyways.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yeah, it's
The good old
amazing.
days. Yeah.
It's amazing how much change it's changed in 50 years. You know, it's really.
Back of the bus, Henry Aaron.
Yeah.
Threatened and with death when he was chasing Babe Ruth's home run
Yeah.
record, which
Or-
just a little while ago.
Or someone
Yeah,
someone just wrote online that the French were banned from a yacht club until 1980 when they finally opened it to everybody. Stuff like that was still around.
French.
Like,
Okay.
huh?
How about blacks and Jews?
Yeah.
So
Oh
please,
yeah.
yeah. Our parents weren't very that weren't always
Yeah.
as enlightened as we like to think they are.
Miguel had a quota system for Jews.
There you go. Okay.
Hey, yeah.
No blacks, no Jews, no dogs.
Yeah, yeah, and
those were our parents, our grandparents.
yeah. Oh yeah, there's lots. I could sit here and we could talk about that for hours, like stuff like that. Yeah.
Right.
Or how like, I was just finished reading the book from Michael Montagu, and he was saying that Imperial Tobacco wouldn't hire blacks, and that was in the 50s and 60s. Yeah.
Nobody hired blacks back in the 30s.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's one company.
I can't talk to
How much
that.
time do you have?
Yeah. Anyways, but again, my God, this conversation is going on. Yeah, peace and love. You know, I think that's the most important, but peace and love, right? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just appreciate everyone that watched live and was out there. We make sure to tell some friends about the show. The best way that we can grow is if you can go and tell people that you enjoyed your experience, and then via the premise of Net Promoter Scores, you can recommend us to others, and that will help us achieve greater levels. We are trying to build a platform at NDG that highlights various NDG things. And if you want to showcase your art, your business, what you are up to, your political movement, your not-for-profit, there's like 80,000 people in this borough, or this half of the borough, I think. And so that's a lot of people that could be doing things, and we want to make sure that the whole part of NDG knows what you're up to. So come through and let us know you want to be a part of this. Let us know your ideas on how we could grow, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. Leave likes, comments, subscribes, all that good stuff. We 100% appreciate everybody that came out today again. Always going to go for the train stuff. But yeah, so we appreciate that. And at the end of the day, thank you one more time, Anthony, for coming and sharing with us. We appreciate you dressing up for the team. Sit back a bit there,
Anthony, so we can get it.
It's real kind of you.
Because your hat's chopped off from the top. Go back. Can you go back, Anthony? That's it. Oh my God! Ladies and gentlemen, Anthony Bonaparte, also known as Napoleon.
We'll
Make
be
sure you
back
say
next
it
Tuesday,
French.
6 p.m.
You
Eastern
look awesome,
Standard Time.
Anthony.
Live on a
Oh,
bunch of stuff.
perfect. Just perfect.
Live long and prosper.